Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, and I mean massive, financial blind spot that the vast majority of us face when we're budgeting for a new home here in Malaysia. If you're currently in the market for a property, you probably think you've got all your numbers figured out, right? Well, by the end of this, you're going to see how one tiny, easily overlooked detail on a property title can literally break your bank account. And hey, before we get too deep into the weeds here, make sure to check out the description for more content and resources related to today's topic. Okay, let's dive right into this. 900 ringgit. Now, this isn't some one-time admin fee. It is the exact amount of hidden monthly costs that you might unexpectedly get trapped into paying every single month. We are talking about hundreds of ringgit just floating right out of your pocket, effectively wiping out your disposable income. And it's all because of a really common misunderstanding about how high-rise properties are actually classified.
To really get how this happens, let's put ourselves in the shoes of a typical homebuyer. Picture this. You're looking at a beautiful, modern 650,000 ringgit property. You pull out your phone, you punch those numbers into a mortgage calculator, you glance at your bank account, and you think to yourself, you know what? 2,700 a month, I can totally afford that. It feels great. You've done the responsible thing, you've calculated your budget. But unfortunately, this is exactly where the illusion begins.
Let's walk through that standard, glossy brochure math that property agents love to present. For a purchase price of 650,000 ringgit, you might take out a loan for 600,000. Assuming a standard interest rate of, say, 4% over a typical 35-year tenure, your monthly repayment comes out to roughly 2,664 ringgit. We'll just round that up to 2,700 ringgit to keep things simple. Boom! This number anchors your baseline expectation. You lock it into your brain as the true cost of your new home.
But yeah, we need to shatter that illusion right now. Because you don't just pay the bank to live in a high-rise, you also have to pay to maintain the actual building. For a 650,000 ringgit condo, you're usually looking at a unit that's roughly 1,000 square feet. Now, if you factor in an average maintenance fee plus a sinking fund, which is basically just a mandatory savings pool for major future building repairs, at around 35 cents per square foot, well, that's an immediate, non-negotiable 350 ringgit added to your monthly cost, right out of the gate.
So before we even begin to talk about things like utilities or taxes, your real baseline has already shifted. It is not 2,700 ringgit. Your true starting point jumps instantly to 3,014 ringgit. And honestly, that's just the bare minimum to keep the lights on in the hallways and keep the bank happy. But now, we're going to layer on the hidden traps that come from the specific type of property you're actually buying. And here is where people get absolutely trapped. High-rise properties in Malaysia generally fall into two buckets: pure residential titles or commercial titles under the Housing Development Act, known as HDA. Think of those super trendy service departments built right on top of shopping malls or retail lots. Developers love selling these commercial HDA properties because, honestly, they offer incredible convenience. I mean, you literally just take the elevator down to buy your groceries or grab a coffee. But, and this is a massive but, while they are protected under the HDA, they carry a huge penalty when it comes to your monthly bills.
Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer disparity in the electricity billing. If you've got a pure residential property, you get to enjoy standard domestic tariffs from TNB, where your first 200 kilowatts cost only 21.8 cents per unit. But if your property is sitting on a commercial title, you're charged the commercial rate, and that base rate starts significantly higher. So if you're someone who likes to leave your air conditioning running all night, your bill is going to skyrocket. For the exact same usage, a residential bill of 150 ringgit can easily spike to 250 or even 300 ringgit under the commercial rate.
So let's go ahead and add this first penalty to our running receipt. That is an extra 150 ringgit a month, just gone. Poof! Just for electricity. Now, to be fair, it's worth noting that commercial buyers do sometimes have the opportunity to apply to TNB for a tariff conversion back to residential rates later on. But it isn't automatic, it requires a lot of paperwork, and it's definitely a hurdle you have to cross. And this brilliantly illustrates how things get even worse when you turn on the tap. Water for pure residential properties is subsidized. In places like Selangor and KL, the minimum charge is a really affordable 6 ringgit a month. But for a commercial title, the minimum charge leaps completely out of proportion straight to 36 ringgit a month. That's literally 6 times higher just to start. Plus, the rate per cubic meter is almost double. If you've got a whole family living in that unit, taking showers, running the washing machine, expect your water bill to jump by at least 40 ringgit a month compared to a standard residential property. So let's stack that estimated 40 ringgit water penalty right onto our growing accumulator of monthly expenses.
Okay, next, let's shift over to the hidden property taxes. Twice a year, you have to pay an assessment fee to your local city council, like DBKL in Kuala Lumpur, and you also pay quit rent, which is basically your land tax, to the land office. Now, pure residential is usually taxed at a pretty reasonable 4 to 5% of the estimated rental value. However, a commercial title can be taxed at 10% or more, depending on the exact property type. While you only pay these twice a year, they are constantly draining your annualized budget.
When you break those biannual taxes down into monthly expenses to see the real cash flow impact, it gets pretty stark. A residential title costs you about 40 ringgit a month in taxes. A commercial title, on the other hand, can easily jump to a painful 120 ringgit a month. A seemingly small percentage jump in the tax rate translates into a genuinely huge hit to your monthly cash flow.
So that is another 80 ringgit hidden monthly fee. Let's go ahead and add this final tax penalty onto our running receipt. Between the water, the electricity, the taxes, it really is like death by 1,000 cuts.
So, the crucial point is this final tally right here. Let's add it all up and bring our accumulator to its climax. We've got 350 for maintenance, 150 for the commercial electricity penalty, 40 for the commercial water penalty, and 80 for the commercial tax penalty. The total hidden cost of buying that commercial HDA property? It's almost 900 ringgit more every single month than the base installment you initially budgeted for.
Which brings us to an absolute reality check. That original 2,700 ringgit expectation, the one where you looked at your bank account and thought, yeah, I can totally afford that. Actually, scratch that. It's going to cost you 3,600 ringgit a month for the next 35 years. That is the true reality of owning a commercial HTA property compared to what a pure residential condo costs.
But listen, you don't have to walk into this trap blindly. Here are the crucial, actionable steps you need to arm yourself with before you ever sign a booking form or a sales agreement. Step 1. Do not just ask the agent about the monthly installment. Ask them specifically, point blank, is this property under a pure residential title or a commercial title? Step 2. If they say commercial, ask if the developer will actively assist the buyers in applying to convert those utility bills to a domestic rate later on. Honestly, getting ahead of this can save you thousands of ringgit over the life of your loan. It's a real game changer.
Which leaves us with the ultimate trade-off. Knowing these heavy financial penalties are just hiding in plain sight, would you still buy a commercial title just for the convenience of having a mall downstairs? Or would you stick to pure residential to protect your monthly cash flow? It is a massive decision, and it really requires rethinking your entire property search strategy. So take a moment to think about it. And hey, don't forget to check out the description for more content that can help you navigate these tricky property waters. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.